So with that, I'm happy to introduce you all to today's final speaker. Colene Elridge, or affectionately called Coach Colene, is the CEO of Be More Consulting. She is known for being the fixer and has been called to help organizations and leaders create better workplaces, productive teams, and aligned results. Her career in government focused on affirmative action, equal employment opportunities, and diversity. She was a successful investigator of harassment and discrimination complaints and implemented strategies that resulted in more diverse and inclusive workplaces. Her first book, Monday Morning Pep Talks, was named by Success Magazine as a top book for professional women. I'm excited to hear from you today, Coach Colene, about the critical journey of allyship to advocacy that we can embark upon within healthcare policy. So please join me in welcoming Coach Colene.
All right, good morning. Y'all, I am so excited to be here with you all for a few reasons. One, this feels like a very full circle moment for me. Allison mentioned that I worked in government. My office was literally like catty corner to this building. And so to be back here in a different capacity, it feels like exciting and weird. I pulled up and I was like, I remember that building. But I'm also really excited because this is such a great topic and I've loved the work that I've been able to do with the foundation. So I want to start with one of my favorite quotes, and that is this: you are responsible for the energy that you bring into a room. Now let's say that again. You are responsible for the energy that you bring into a room. And I love to start with that because I know I have set out in audiences before and I have not been responsible for the energy that I bring into a situation. And so what I want us to do is I want us to take a couple of minutes. I want you to find a partner or a three if you need to do a small group. And I want you to right now decide, what energy do you want to bring to our conversation today? Okay? What energy do you want to bring to our conversation today? I'll give y'all a couple of minutes. Go. All right, clap once if you can hear me. 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 Perfect. That's how I'll get your attention when we need to come back. My only ask is that you're not the person that hears people clapping and then you're like, oh, I should just talk louder, because I will give you the evil eye, okay? What energy do you want to bring to our time together today? What are some of the things that you all said? Just shout them out to me. Authenticity, wonderful. What else? Openness. Great. What else? Cohesion and passive aggression? Okay, you know what? I said whatever energy you want to bring, that's all that's important. What else? Who else? Hopefulness. Curiosity. Wonderful. Senior energy, I'll take it. Joy, wonderful. Anyone else? Great. So I want you to think about this as we go through our time together. What energy did I say I wanted to bring, and how am I showing up in that energy? Hi, welcome. I'm Coach Colene. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am as a person. These are the things that I love most in the world. Yes, that is Justin Timberlake. Yes, he is that important to me that he makes my About Me page because I love him so much, and it makes me smile every single time I see his picture. Look at him. I don't know him personally, but we've been kicking it since I was 13, so he makes my About Me page. Now, my actual husband is right there in the middle. His name is Robert. We are very different people. We've been married almost 7 years now. I still really like him, which I think is important. But he is retired military. He did 13 years as a Marine and then 13 years in the Army. He then retired and became a law enforcement officer for the city of Columbus. And now he teaches JROTC full-time at a school. I come in and I'm having a lot of feelings, and he's like, I don't know what that is or what to do with them. But somehow we make it work. I think the thing that best describes how different we are is our approach to gift giving. So 1 year for Christmas, we always give each other the gift we're most excited about on Christmas Eve. And he handed me a gift, and this is what was in it. Ooh. Those are machine gun hoop earrings that he gave to me. He wrapped them up and put them under the tree and gave them to me. Now, I know we just met, but it's not really my style. But that's what he gave me for Christmas 1 year. I wore them for our first look when we got married. And he was like, oh my gosh, will you wear those to the ceremony? And I was like, no, that was just for you. So I'll share a little bit more about him during our time together. Oprah's my homegirl. She inspires a lot of what I do. My mom and my brother are two of the other most important people in my life. I was raised by a single mom after my father passed away, so my family unit is very close. I do yoga, specifically hot yoga. The little guy you see there is my bonus son, Bo, who is one of the best things that's ever happened to me, and I love tea. Now, professionally, Allison told you all a little bit about what I did. Part of that was in government, right across the street at the personnel cabinet. I started there as an intern and then moved into the Office of Diversity and Equality and wrote policies for government on how to make it a more diverse and equitable place. I did trainings, I did investigations, and now I own a business called Be More Consulting. Ice cream is my love language. That's what you really need to know about me. Anyone else? Yeah, okay, good. But other thing is this. I know what it's like to get in your own way. Raise your hand if sometimes you have big thoughts, big dreams, big goals, but you kind of get in your own way of making them happen. Anyone? Does anyone feel like that sometimes when we think about the work that we're trying to do when it comes to advocacy? Like you get in your own way. Raise your hand. Anyone? Yeah, and so I wanted to include that because I'm going to share some things with you because I know some things, but that doesn't mean that I do them all perfectly. So here's what I need from you. I need you to be all in for our time together today. When I say be all in, what do you think I mean? Pay attention, of course. Yes. What else? Participate. Yes. What else? Have an open mind. Yes. You won't need your phone for anything while we're together, okay? You won't need it. You won't need it. We're just here together. Can we be all in? Can we be all in? Yes. Awesome, okay. So, what do you hope to get out of this conversation today? It's from ally to advocacy. What do you hope to get out of it? I want you to go back to your partner or your small group, and I want you to just share, what do you hope to get out of our conversation today? I'll give you a couple minutes. Go. All right, clap once if you can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap. Y'all are so good. It gets better every time. What do you hope to get from our time together today? What are some of the things that you said? One actionable item that you can implement easily. Great. What else?
An idea or phrase that'll make my work tomorrow better.
An idea or phrase that will make your work tomorrow better. Great. What else? Okay, see old friends and make one new friend. Love that. Someone up here was saying something.
Yeah, we're curious on how to identify which white people to trust as allies. We spend a lot of time in relationship with white people, and then ultimately they're still racist and don't have the same values. And so how do we discern which white folks to trust and build with?
Okay, probably not going to hit that in this talk, but I appreciate your honesty for saying that. Honestly, though, I do think when we talk about advocacy, part of it is going to be what do you see them doing, right? Not just what are they saying, what do you see people doing, right? Good. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, better ways to advocate. Wonderful. All right, so here's what we are going to do. We're going to reflect on your current position on the continuum, identify personal and organizational growth opportunities. We're going to understand the roles of bystanders, allies, and advocates in creating progress. And the last piece is really all about you. I want you to develop an action plan. One of the things that's really important for me is that you don't just leave here with a bunch of words. You leave here with a plan for what you want to do next. So let's talk allyship versus advocacy. Back with your small groups, I want you to define the difference. What do you think the difference is between being an ally and being an advocate? Now listen, don't overthink this. I already see some of y'all's faces. Don't overthink this. It's not that serious. I'm going to give you a definition, but I just want you to think about what's the difference between an ally and an advocate. So back with your partner or small group, go. All right. Clap once if you can hear me. You're ready. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. Perfect. What are the difference? What's the difference between ally and advocate? What are some of the things that you all came up with?
An agreement versus an action.
Okay, an agreement versus an action. Great. What else?
A relationship versus action and shared risk.
Okay, a relationship versus action and shared risk. I love that. Anyone else?
I know you and I'll speak.
Say more.
So, if you're an ally, you have a direct connection, like a shared connection. And the advocate is, I'll take that issue and go.
Got you. So I know you versus I'll speak up for you. Gotcha. Okay. So this is usually the number one response I get. People are like, I don't know, like we're all doing the same stuff, right? Aren't we? I don't know. But here is what I really think it comes down to. Allyship is about showing support. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show support for you, for the cause, for whatever it is that we're on the same page about. Advocacy is about turning words and intentions into real world impact. I'm going to not just show up, I'm going to do the work, right? I'm going to do the work to help make changes that are going to make things better, that are going to help us progress. And so when we think about how do we move from allyship to advocacy, one of the things that I really want you to think about is, where are you on this continuum? Where do you feel most comfortable? Because I know a lot of people think that they're doing a lot of things. They're like, oh yeah, no, I'm an advocate, I'm doing all the things. But then when we really define what that is, they realize that they could be doing a little bit more. So on your handout, I want you to just take a second, and if you had to place yourself somewhere on this spectrum right now, from passive ally to active advocate, where would you place yourself? You're not going to share this with anyone else. This is just for you. Now, here's what I want you to know. There's not a right or wrong place to be on this. I think sometimes we like to judge ourselves and think, oh, I should be further along. This is really just about awareness, because what happens when we start to judge ourselves? What do you think we start to do? We what? We can start making excuses. And what else? We can hold ourselves to a higher standard sometimes. We can get in our own way. We start to think too hard about it, and then we're like, I don't know if you all ever do this, but sometimes when I have a lot of things to do, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many things I need to do. I don't know where to start. I think I'll just take a nap. Take a nap, right? And so what happens sometimes when we think too much about and put too much pressure on ourselves about the work that we're doing or not doing, we get so overwhelmed that we end up just taking a nap and doing nothing instead. So I don't want you to put blame or shame on yourself based on where you're at. I just want you to be aware. But mostly what I want you to match who you want to be with where you are in this journey. Because sometimes, again, we think that we're doing all the right things, but we're not matching our intentions with who we really want to be. And so if you want to be a really active advocate, I would start asking myself questions like, well, what does an active advocate do every day? What does that look like for me? How do I need to show up every day to be an active advocate? If I'm okay with being in the middle, that's great, but it needs to be in alignment with who I say I want to be. And that's what's really important. So I have 5 scenarios. We probably don't need to do all 5, but I want us to just kind of see the difference between allyship and advocacy. So I have some scenarios, and I want you to just tell me which one you think it is. The first one is this. You hear that your company is creating a diversity and inclusion initiative. You decide to join the committee to provide input and help drive the efforts forward. Is that allyship or advocacy? Raise your hand if you think allyship. Okay, raise your hand if you think advocacy. Okay, advocacy. Actively participating in the committee to drive change goes beyond support. It's taking a visible, tangible step towards promoting diversity and inclusion. Now, let me just say this. In 2020, my phone blew up, right? Because my background was in EEO and diversity in government. A lot of people knew me for that work, and so a lot of companies were calling me saying, hey, we want to do something, we don't know where to start, where do we start? My favorite was a company that called me and said, we just want to hire more Black people, like how do we do that? And I was like, cool, probably not the first question that I'd start with, so I'm not sure I'm the girl for you, but if that's all you want without changing the culture or the environment that you want to bring these Black folks in that you want to hire, it's not going to work, right? And so sometimes things people are doing are looking like they're doing the right things, but they're really actually causing more harm than good. And so when I think about these committees, sometimes I want us to think, well, what are the committees doing? What work are they actually doing in the organization? Or is it just so you can put in your annual report that you have a committee, right? All right, next one. You see a social media post that contains harmful stereotypes about a marginalized group. You like a comment made by someone else that challenges the stereotypes, but don't make a comment yourself. Allyship or advocacy? Yeah. Allyship, liking the comment shows support, but it's passive. Advocacy would involve directly addressing the harmful post by sharing information or challenging the stereotypes yourself. And this will be the last one. During a team meeting, you notice that a colleague's ideas are consistently overlooked because of their gender or race. You make a point to reiterate and highlight their contributions during the discussion. Raise your hand if you think allyship. Okay, raise your hand if you think advocacy. Okay, advocacy, taking action to amplify your colleague's voice demonstrates a commitment to changing the dynamics in the room and supporting them actively. So you all get the difference between allyship and advocacy. What I want us to do right now is I want us to spend some time with each other at your full table, and I want you to talk about these 2 things. What are some things that we can do to enact change, to move more towards advocacy, and what gets in the way for you when you think about moving from ally to advocate? So what are some of the things that get in the way as you're moving from ally to advocate? These are full table talks, so talk to everyone at your table. So what are some things that we can do to enact change to help move towards advocacy, and then what gets in the way? Okay, I'll give you all a couple minutes. Go. All right. He's ready. He's ready to clap. All right, let's talk about this because I really wanted us to spend some time with our groups thinking about this and talking about this because sometimes it just kind of lives in our head and we don't ever move past, especially the second question. But what are some of the things that you all came up with in response to that first question?
Our table came up with ask questions and learn,
Okay.
change the environment to welcome open speech, and your leadership.
Okay, those are great starts. Wonderful. What else? Yeah.
So when you're called to act, right? I mean, I'm in a university setting, and the call to action when the DEI legislation was hanging over our higher ed heads, you know, there was a call to act, and I had to make a choice that was going to work for my situation, and I chose to act as a private citizen, not as a member of the university community, and so I made that choice. But then I used my space to invite students. It was an invitation only to provide letters as well if they felt so inclined, and that's how I acted, but I did it in a measured way that felt safe for me.
Yeah. I have to tell you all, I do yoga with one of the university presidents, I won't say who. And so when news came out, I was like, can I talk to you for a second? As we're like in like a pose, I'm like, can I talk to you after this for just a second though? Cause like, just 1 second, you know? And so sometimes you really have to like, one, know your audience, but two, when you get the second, use the second for impact, right? And it was one of those, I know you in this capacity, but I also know that you have this place that you're making big decisions for. And can I just tell you my thoughts on this and why I think this way in 1 minute, right? So, yeah, that's great. What else? First question. What are some things we can do? Yeah.
Commit a budget.
Thank you. Give that a round of applause. Commit a budget. So many times people want to do things and they'll say, but we don't have any money to do it. And I'm like, great. Well, what are you doing then, right? Because you got to have money to back things up sometimes. Where you place your money tells me a lot about what you value as an organization. So, what else? Things that we can do, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and being willing to share information with people as well. Wonderful. Anyone else? Some things that we can do to enact change? Yeah, in the back.
Have a process and tools to empower people, especially at the local level.
Did you say create some processes and tools?
Well, have that process and tools to empower people, to let them know that they can be an advocate.
Yeah, sometimes people just don't know where to start, right? And so how can we make it easier for them to raise their hand, to step up, to show up, and to start doing some things? That's great. All right, second question, and this one I think is probably the most important thing to address. What do you think gets in the way when we think about moving from an ally to an advocate? What are some of the challenges, things that get in the way? Fear. Fear of what? Fear of losing your loved ones. What else?
Funding.
Getting fired. Funding, definitely. What else? Yeah.
A cost-benefit analysis. You're weighing your options, especially in personal versus public.
Yeah, do I say something? Do I not say something? If I do say something, what's the impact of that? Right? Awesome. What else? Yeah. Say more about that.
If you don't have the trust already built up or a relationship already built up, it's going to get in the way of making any impact.
Yeah, and trust is such an important thing, which I think ties directly to one of the things that you said earlier. If we don't have trust here, what's going to happen? How much time and energy am I going to spend questioning your intentions, questioning why you're here, questioning what do you want from me, what are you going to do with this information, right? So part of what we have to think about is how are we building relationships, not just transactions, but relationships with the people that we're trying to do this work with, because we have to build that trust there. What else gets in the way? Yeah.
For me, one thing that I often think about is safety, because I advocate for the LGBTQ community, and I have had experiences where I am in the public eye, often with my work, experiencing death threats and hearing stories about others experiencing those threats or actual harm. So for me, that is one thing that sometimes makes me worried about being in the public eye and advocating, but it's still really important, so we do it anyway.
Yeah, there is legitimate threats, right, to like physical and emotional and mental harm that we do need to consider as well. What else?
White supremacy.
Definitely can get in the way of an individual moving, but also of an organization moving from allyship to advocate. What else?
People need a feeling of agency and something that they're passionate about.
I can't see who's talking right now. Can you raise your hand real quick? Okay, perfect. Say that again.
People need a feeling of agency and something that they are passionate about.
Yeah, sometimes people just need to, for lack of better words, give a damn, right? Like, hey, we should care about this. You should care about this issue, right? Yeah, in the back.
Hello. I would say also recognizing our own self-interest, that even if we're advocating or an ally, like we all have our self-interest in moving forward together.
It's a great one. Anyone else? What gets in the way?
Bureaucracy.
Yes, right. Yeah, I mean, truly, as someone who worked in government for almost 15 years, I know sometimes that gets in the way of a lot of the progress that we want to make, right? All right, so I want to talk about ways to support, and you all kind of hit some of the things to consider. What is the situation? What is your position of power in the movement or in the moment? What is your physical safety like? What is your mental safety like? I think about this time once where I was in downtown Cincinnati, and I'm at a stoplight, and I see a woman getting chased across the street. And she's yelling, "Somebody help me, somebody help me, he's gonna kill me, somebody help me." And in that moment, she runs by my car, and the man just barely grabs the back of her shirt. And in that moment, I said, "Hit him with your car." Like, my first thought was, if I just like, not like a full-on hit, but just like a little tap with my car, I was like, if I just give a little tap, would she be able to escape? And would this be the best route for me to help, right? And I see him pull a gun in that moment. And I'm like, do not hit him with your car. At this moment, your best thing to do is just call 911. And so I pulled over. I had no clue where I was at, but I'm like, I think that this is what I see around me. This is what I just saw. Here's the license plate number. That was the best thing that I could do in that moment, right? Because when I looked at the situation, I knew it was urgent, but I also had to look at my own physical safety, my own mental safety, but I knew the option was not do anything. But the number of cars that just kept driving when the light changed, I was like, oh, no, we have to do something, right? And so we have to recognize that these factors do matter, and a lot of times people don't want to give that enough credit, but these factors do matter as you're making the decisions on the things that you're going to do. But I want to give you some other ways. I don't know what's there we go. Some other ways to move to advocacy, because I do think that there are lots of other things that people can do that don't get as enough credit because they're not as big and they're not as splashy and they're not as sexy as some of the other things. There's something for everyone. So one of the things that you can do is you can be a sponsor, which is openly supporting underrepresented groups, right? Give me an example of what you think that might look like if you sponsor someone, or if you're sponsoring a cause.
Well, if nothing else, contributing money to groups that deal with specific issues like that.
Yeah, definitely giving money, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But really, it's just like, hey, these are the causes that I care about, and I'm going to be vocal about the causes that I care about. The next thing you can do is champion, which is voluntarily deferring to underrepresented groups. You could be an amplifier, ensure a wide range of voices are heard. I heard a group in the back talking about a male coworker. Can you share that if you feel comfortable sharing it?
Sure. So I have a colleague here that I worked with for several years, and one of your examples resonated with us in that she and I have been in meetings together where one of us might say something and then a male colleague would follow up and say the same thing that we just said. Mm-hmm. And we have supported each other over the years to speak up when that happens, to say, that's a great idea, you know, she said that about 5 minutes ago.
Right.
So being willing to support each other in situations and call out that behavior, I think, is important.
Yeah, and that's really what I see as like the role of an amplifier, right? And so oftentimes when I'm working with women in leadership and coaching women in leadership, I tell them to find their amplifiers. If you're in meetings, make sure you know who your amplifiers are going to be and decide beforehand that you're going to support each other in that way, right? And sometimes that's what it takes. This is one I think gets overlooked a lot, but is really important, and that's a scholar. And those are people that really seek to learn as much as possible about the challenges facing underrepresented groups. Why do you think the role of like a scholar in advocacy is so important? Oh, yeah, your hand's raised, go. Yeah, yep. Agreed, right? Because what I really see as someone who's a scholar is someone who says, here's the data, but here's what this means, right? Because I think a lot of people look at data and they only see surface level data, and they're not thinking deeper and further about, well, what does this actually mean for the people that these numbers represent, right? What is the story behind this data? And so scholars, I think, are so important to advocacy, and I don't think that they get enough credit for the work that they do. Upstanders, the opposite of bystanders. They speak up when they see wrongdoings. And then a confidant. Are you a person that is creating both safe and brave spaces for people to come and have challenging conversations, for people to listen to someone else's truth, for people to feel comfortable sharing their truths with you, right? So these are different ways that you can be an advocate. What I want you to do right now is on the handout, it says, my preferred type is blank. If you had to pick one of these, which one do you think would be the easiest for you to kind of go to? Sponsor, champion, amplifier, scholar, upstander, confidant. All right, and just so we can get a feel for the room, raise your hand if sponsor was yours. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, okay? Champion. Okay, a couple of champions. Amplifiers. Okay, scholars. Ooh, scholars. Upstander. And then confidant. Okay, great. So I wanted you all to see, like, it takes all kinds. There's not a right or wrong kind. It takes all kinds. I'm kind of a mix between an upstander and a confidant. My husband always jokes, he's like, if something happens, Colene's going to say something. Like, he just knows, like, I'm going to say something, and he'll be like, well, how long are we going to be here while you're trying to save the world in this restaurant right now, Colene? And so I'm just a person that if I see something, I'm going to say something. All right, I want to talk quickly about moving from individual to collective action, and this is a graphic that I really like for us to think about. When we think about our own individual actions, a person's beliefs and actions that serve to perpetuate oppression, they're both conscious and unconscious, externalized and internalized. And then we have these systemic ones, which are institutional and structural challenges. And then we have this interpersonal, and those are the interactions between people both within and across differences. What I really want you to think about is at the individual level, what changes need to happen for you to move closer to an advocate? So is it training? Do you need more awareness and training? But at the individual level, what are some of the things that you need to do to get more comfortable in moving towards an advocate? At the interpersonal level, and this is something that I really want you to write down, circle, star, and underline. I want you to think about how are you talking about the communities that you support? Is it from a deficit-based lens or an asset-based lens? And know that this really impacts the way that you perceive the work that you're doing and the way that you write policies. So how are you talking about the communities that you support? Are you talking about it like you're the savior that's coming in to rescue them? Or are you talking about it as this is an asset to our community and this is why we should care? And then systemic, I want you to think about policies and practices that need to change in order for you to impact change. And then what are the consequences of those? When I worked in government, I worked under 4 different administrations during my time there. And at one point in time, a governor wanted to remove sexual orientation as a protected class. Now, I'm in the EEO and diversity office. We write the policy, right? We wrote the affirmative action statement that said these are the protected classes. So when it came down that they wanted to remove that, I said, this is not in alignment with who we are as an office. This is not in alignment with who we are as a state. This is not in alignment with the policies that we've created. This is not okay. I was told that it was none of my business what the policies were going to be. I just needed to go with it and move forward. I left very shortly after that, right? And so sometimes you have to think about what are the practices and policies that are in place that you can do something about. I knew in that moment there was nothing that I could do in the scope of that office, but there was a lot of things I could do outside of the scope of that office, right? And so thinking about that, I think, is really, really important. So the last piece of this that I want us to do is I want you to create your own advocacy plan. And part of that is looking at how do you want to contribute? Now, I think that there are 4 main ways that you can contribute. You can contribute your voice, your money, your time, or your talent. Your voice, your money, your time, or your talent. Now, some people, there are some causes that I care enough about that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give it some money. but I'm not going to give it my time because I don't want to give it my time. And to me, my time is my most valuable resource. But that doesn't mean I don't care enough to give it my money. There are some things that I care enough about that I'm going to give my time and my talent because I know some things that I could do that could contribute to making this organization a better organization. All four of these are good, but deciding which one you want to be your anchor, I think, is most important. So what I want you to do right now is the last piece of this is your advocacy plan at the bottom. And that is, how do you want to contribute in the next 30 days? What would it look like for you with your voice, your money, your time, your talent? What do you want your commitment to be? What are some of the pitfalls that might happen? And what do you want your ultimate goal to be in the next 30 days? What actions do you want to take in the next 30 days? Okay, I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll wrap up. All right, the last thing I want you to do is with a partner, not your whole table, but with a partner or a small group of 3, I want you to share your commitment with them. Why do you think I want you to share your commitment? Yeah, once you become aware, you become responsible, and once you take it out of your head and put it on paper, it increases the likelihood that you'll do it. And once you share it with someone else, it exponentially increases the likelihood that you'll do it. So I want you to take just 1 minute and share your commitment with a partner. Go. All right, clap once if you can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. Perfect. If you didn't get a chance to finish, lunch is a perfect time to share your plan. I want to share a couple of questions. These are things I'm not going to read them off to you, but if you want to take a screenshot or a picture of these, I think these are great. Is it just for show? I want you to also be aware of what you're doing is just performative and you're not doing it for the actual sake of progress, but you're doing it because it looks good or you want other people to know how good of a person you are. That's not why you should be doing any of this work, but these are some of the questions to think about. Am I an ally or an advocate? Are my actions addressing systemic oppression? How am I creating space for those who are continually marginalized? Whose voices is centered? How do I benefit from these systems? Now, these are not questions that I want you to take and be like, can I talk to you for a second? And start asking your coworkers. These are personal reflection questions for you, okay? Because I do think that it's important for you to have that own awareness. I love this quote from Lila Watson, and it says, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. And as you think about the work that you're doing, this is the approach that I really want you to remember is all of our liberations are tied up together. And the more that we're willing to see the work that we're doing in conjunction with someone else's liberation, I think the better off we'll all be. I'm gonna wrap this up. I would love to hear one or two takeaways from our conversation today. One or two. Just unmute or raise your hand. Yeah. Oh. It's not one size fits all. That's great. Thank you.
I think mine is that some of the forms of education that I've been giving myself are a form of advocacy. And that it doesn't exactly have to be black and white in advocacy.
Great. Wonderful. Anyone else? Yeah, in the back. See your hand up.
Yeah, that you can't do it all. You need to decide if you're going to be an advocate for certain situations or whether you're just going to be an ally.
Yes. I think that awareness, what are my strengths and where am I willing to invest that level of energy, I think is really important. Wonderful. Anyone else? All right, I know I'm standing between you and lunch. So thank you so much. The last thing is I just want you to remember to do whatever you choose to do intentionally. If you ever need anything, these are the best ways to get a hold of me. I'd love to hear from you if you have questions or comments or need additional information. I'm happy to share any of that. I do send out a pep talk every week. If you are interested in that, it's completely free. You can sign up for it that way. Thank you so much for having. Yeah, I have time. If y'all have time for questions, yeah. If there's any questions, we have time for one or two questions. Ben was ready. Yeah, you might be more hungry than what you are curious right now, and that is a challenge that I personally understand as well. So I'll stick around for a couple of minutes, and if you do have questions, feel free to ask me independently without the audience. So thank you so much for having me. I'm going to turn it back over to Allison and Ben.